Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the WorryFree Retirement with Tony Walker. And now, the host of the WorryFree Retirement, John Ramsey.
Welcome to the WorryFree Retirement, the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money. And with us now is the author and creator himself, Senior Market Magazine's finalist for Advisor of the Year, Mr. Tony Walker. Tony, I'm looking forward to this show. I know we've got a lot of important information to cover, but first on a personal note, good weekend?
Good weekend, kind of a heavy weekend, John. You know, last weekend on the show, we shared about my daughter getting engaged, so I had a big high, right? All excited. Sure. And then, unfortunately, this past weekend, we've got 4 dogs. For those of you who know me, know I love dogs. My wife loves them a lot. But our oldest, Holly, who we'd had since birth, little puppy, 16 years, she's been just doing awful. I described it as Alzheimer's, really, for the last couple years. Just walking around, appetite was still there, but you could tell getting very, very frail. And so Susan out of the blue just kind of says, I think today's the day. So we had to take old Holly, and we were prepared. We're going to talk about preparation today on the show, but still it's hard. You know, you got a member of the family. I know maybe some of you aren't really what we call dog lovers. I know you are. We've had dogs for years. Man, you lose a dog, and it's a member of the family almost.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I'm sorry, but like you said, the highs and the lows and things you can't predict. But wow. Well, let's get to the meat of the show here real quickly. I want to talk a little bit, Tony, if you're all right with it, a little bit more about your book, The WorryFree Retirement. You know, you and I have been doing this show for quite some time. We've done some other shows as well. And I'll be honest with you all, as you probably know, I'm a paid host. With that being said, you've been very consistent with your message about the 3-prong approach. Man, money, and God.
How long do you think we've been working on and off together? Because you've hosted other programs with me. You think 5 years at least?
I would say at least 5 years.
All right. And kind of set the stage here.
Yeah, and I think it is important that you mention that, because as we go on, I'm more and more of a believer. When I first met you, I was open-minded, but I wasn't quite sure. But the more I'm around you, and not just with your book, but with your personal life as well, I see that you really do believe that there is more to life than just, hey, you know, X's and O's and numbers, that spirituality plays a big part. And it's really come to my attention as of late, and maybe yours as well, because the President of the United States is coming forward and talking about his spirituality. And I love, it kind of sums it all up. You've got 10 steps to the worry-free retirement, and a lot of them make perfect sense to both you and I. But Tony, you articulate it very well. But I like step number 10. It says, trust God with the rest. And that kind of says it all, doesn't it? It's like, I'm going to tell you, do this, and everything, and then trust God. You really believe that?
Yeah, and I think when you're out in the trenches this long, John, and we're going to talk, the theme of the show is the worry-free retirement, how it evolved, talk about preparation. We're going to get into long-term care insurance quite a bit today. We're going to cover that because people are actually ill-prepared for growing older. You know, we bring up Holly, my dog, but my wife and I were prepared for what would happen. And let's face it, humans and dogs are 2 different things. We could take Holly to the vet, and unfortunately, you know, we had to do the number kind of thing. Well, humans, you can't do that. So, but I was at the church I attend, and the pastor did an interesting sermon. And I was going to share a few scripture verses and get into the worry-free retirement more in a minute, but he brought up the idea of preparation. This is going to sound like an oxymoron. Being prepared and also being dependent. Because, you know, when you think about it, in this country, especially in our work, you and I both were ambitious, we get out and work hard. You got to prepare, and we kind of tend to think, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to make it on your own. You can do it, John. You can do anything you want in life. There's never any failures, right? And that's really not the right message. I mean, because everybody hits a wall at some point. So there's a little bit of that dependence that comes into that balance between being prepared and being dependent. I like to say that God is fine putting us in charge, but He has to remind us He's in control. So there's a huge difference. I'm going to share a couple scriptures with you because I think this is going to set the stage very well and lead into how do we prepare financially for the things in life. So folks, as you're thinking about your future, and it doesn't matter what age you are, but as this is a retirement planning show, whether you're already retired and you still have worries, or you're thinking about retirement, or maybe it's been forced on you, maybe you've been laid off and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm ill prepared for this. I have not really thought through this. We're here to help. I've been doing this nearly 30 years, And in just a minute, I'm going to show you our 5-step process. It's a decision-making process that anybody can use for any kind of decision, especially retirement. Well, let me cover these scriptures that our pastors shared, and I'm going to tie this with you. Now, this is really important. Go to the ant, O sluggard. We're not accusing anybody of being a sloucher out there, but basically it's saying, O sluggard, in that sometimes we get to that point, John, where we feel like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I don't feel like doing anything. And this is where the encouragement comes in. Observe her ways and be wise. Here's that word wisdom coming in, which having no chief, the ant doesn't have a chief, right?
Right.
Nobody ruling over the ant, no officers. Let's keep going with this verse. It's interesting that the ant prepares, there's that word, her food. When? In the summer or the winter? Do you wait till the winter and try to figure this out, John, or do you do it ahead of time?
In the summer.
In the summer, and gathers her provision in the harvest. Okay, so thank you. So the point with this verse is there's a time to prepare and a time to enjoy. But if you're going to enjoy a worry-free retirement and you're not going to prepare, you're not going to be able to enjoy, and you're going to worry. Now, so intuitively, the ant, God-given instincts, tells the ant, you better prepare. The ant hadn't been told to do that. And we as humans, I think, in our culture have kind of gotten away from that. We've not understood, and I think there's been a lot of giveaways, and we've tended, to receive things from others without giving, but we forget that. You've got to prepare. Now, let's go to this next verse. So how does one prepare? And in today's world with finances, let me tie this in. This is Proverbs 15:22. Okay, so the ant does not need to consult anybody, but we live in a more difficult world than ants, right? So let's look at Proverbs 15:22. Without consultation, okay, plans are frustrated, but with many counselors, they succeed. Do you see the difference there between ants, John, and humans? The first verse applies to God-given instincts that we should all get out and work, and we have to prepare.
Sure.
And to say unlike that we shouldn't, we're lying to ourselves. We know that we've got to prepare for things, but we tend not to. So, but what's even possibly worse is we plan, but we don't ever seek advice. You know what, my youngest, Anthony, came to me the other day. This was funny. Brought up the idea of one day starting a franchise. And I thought that sounded pretty cool, didn't you? A young man, 18. And he started talking, going on and on about this. And I wanted to say, Anthony, yeah, you're setting plans in motion. You don't even know what you're talking about, because he doesn't have the experience of what it's like to run a business, see? Great ambition.
Sure.
May even have wonderful plans, John, but wouldn't you expect somebody with a lack of experience in franchising to go seek the counsel of others who had it? Sure. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
So you're saying you have to seek the counsel of others, especially when not being experienced in that field, and to be truly prepared. You can't prepare on your own. You cannot.
There's no way. In the same way with retirement, retirement, folks, was thrust on people back. Really, the concept of retirement came out when Social Security was created in the 30s. The government was trying to figure out a way to get the old guys to quit working so young people could have work. So what's happened is this notion of retirement hit the fray. A lot of people are really not prepared for retirement. I meet people that sometimes don't want to retire, but it's being forced on them. So we have to have a process. So when we come back, John, I'm going to share with you the 5 steps, this process, this decision-making process I came up with, and believe me, it's going to allow people to prepare better, and also it's going to allow them to also be dependent on certain things that may be out of their control. It's called the 5-step process. We're going to cover it when I come back.
I also want to remind you to go to the website, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Do that. Any city you live in, the first 10 who contact Tony through the website, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, leave your name and address. Obviously, he'll send you all 3 books absolutely free. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Contact Tony with all of your information, name, address, of course, and there's the 3 books right there on your screen. All right, coming up, Tony is going to talk about those 5 unique steps that you need for a worry-free retirement. This is the only show that is truly dedicated to helping savers worry less about their money. We'll be right back.
How would you like to find a trusted advisor in your area who practices and preaches the same safe money solutions that I speak of on this program? Well, you can by simply logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and clicking on the Find an Advisor link. Once there, just fill out the confidential profile and submit it. This free service is available to savers who are serious about safeguarding their money. So what are you waiting for? Stop worrying and log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Hey Tony, now what about long-term health care insurance? I'm 52 years old, and I just need a little more information to try and point me in the right direction and understand it a little better.
You know, Tony, it's interesting that he brings up long-term health care, because prior to the show, you and I were talking about something that happened recently to one of your clients. And I know it really concerned you, but it really works into this whole preparation. Things you can't prepare for, or things you don't want to prepare for, but you better think about. And that's what's important. You had some really good advice, and I know you see this quite often, more than I would anyway.
Unfortunately, John, yeah. I'm seeing it more and more. I've had, in the last month, 2 clients. Both of them have been the males of the long-term marriages. These are people who have been married 50-plus years each. And unfortunately, both of these males have had onset Alzheimer's very quickly. My father passed away of Alzheimer's, but been very quickly, progressed very quickly. So now you have the spouses coming to me, and basically there's not much we can do at this point. We're going to talk about long-term care in a second. But you know, one of them's looking at $8,000 a month, John, for this one facility. So $8,000 a month. And people say, well, can't you just qualify for Medicaid? It's not that simple. So it's a huge dilemma. And although we've prepared for a lot of things, you know, at some point, like I told her, I'll call her Joan. I made up her name there, but I told Joan, at some point, Joan, now your dependence on God's going to have to show through, because we'll do what we can, but we have, number one, no idea how long your husband's going to be in this facility, right? It's not like taking poor old Holly to the vet. Not that that should be an option. I'm just saying we're back to now being prepared, seeking counsel. What do you do? There's certain things you can do in those situations, but there's a lot of things you cannot do. The finances are going to get hit very hard. So now we get this Tony in the Trenches. Great question over long-term care, but it's certainly a dilemma. I'm going to cover that in just a second, but you know, I would like to go over these 5 steps real quick, because we've got a lot to cover on long-term care as well. All right, let's go over to the board here, folks. And basically, I want to share with you these 5 steps. I call them the 5 steps of decision making, but certainly they're a great way to understand the worry-free retirement. One of the problems is, as I go through this, if you don't have an advisor that's trying to take you through a process, if all they're doing is, I like to say, peddling a product and not wanting to spend time and walk through something similar to this, you probably need a second opinion, especially if you're at retirement or near retirement age, because you don't have a process. It's going to be very hard for you to face all the uncertainty out there that I know you're going to face from my experience, and you're going to need some wise counsel in this area. So let's take a look at my 5-step process, the worry-free retirement. The first thing you do, I'll kind of draw a circle up here, you first need to clarify your vision. What this means is you need to sit down with somebody and say, okay, here is what I'm really looking for in retirement. Here's what I'm trying to do. And ironically, in this particular case where the person has to admit a husband to a nursing home, we had to go back and re-clarify the vision, because now all of a sudden their retirement game plan is going to change. It's a fact of life. But this process is used to try to help understand what the next step might be. The next step in our process, we'll call this step 1 and step 2, is to assess your situation. Now, this could be anything. Let's say you currently are looking to retire in 5 years. We're going to talk about an article on the next show about how many people in their 50s are getting laid off and they can't find work. Well, how do you assess your situation? How do you assess your current 401k? How do you assess the current tax laws and when to deploy this money? So a good retirement specialist understands that there has to be some method to the madness here. The third step is you have to commit, okay, to a game plan. So what we do in the WorryFree Retirement, we assess the situation, and then we try to lay out a game plan that someone commits to. Let's face it, if you're not committed to trying to make things better or trying to work and learn, it ain't going to work. Let's take my son, for instance. Let's say he has a vision for a franchise. We assess the situation together, and he realizes, I'm just using numbers out of thin air. I'll say, Anthony, that's fine, but you got to come up with $200,000. Whoops. He might say, I ain't committed to that, you know, and that's fine, but that's how you go through a correct decision-making process. The fourth thing you do is then implement the game plan, okay? And I love this with the analogy of the sports. That's fine. We can clarify a vision of what we're going to do. We can assess our opponents and what we have to work with. We can commit to winning the game in a certain zone defense, etc. But then the tough part, John, in any kind of sport or any type of financial endeavor is how do we implement this thing? And then finally, just like I had to do with a client recently that put her husband in the nursing home, we have to monitor our progress. What that means is we have to sit down on a somewhat regular basis. It doesn't have to be quarterly or annually. Generally, what I like to sit down and talk with people is when things have come up in their life that have changed, like the lady who's all of a sudden having to deal with nursing home, or like the person that gets laid off, or the person that loses a loved one, or just simply somebody maybe that took a huge hit in the stock market, or maybe they're getting to an age where they want to get out of the stock market. This is a good time to meet with an advisor, seek wise counsel, and monitor and see where you are. Now, if you don't have a game plan, if it's very chaotic, or maybe you're with some of these advisors that load you up with statements and make it complicated, the reason you're so worried is there's no way to monitor it. I mean, how do you monitor a 40-page document with short-term capital gains and long-term capital gains and all these mutual funds? That's why we stress for people that are savers on this show why you should consider what we call fixed annuities. We use these a lot in the retirement planning process. Why is that? Let's look at this and summarize just the example of a fixed annuity. First of all, savers love to have guaranteed income they can never outlive. They don't like risk. They want certainty. Fixed annuity does that. We assess people's situation and we find out that they don't have a pension plan in place. They don't have something that emulates granddad's retirement. A fixed annuity can do that. Finally, they can commit to fixed annuities because they're very certain. They don't change. They're easy to implement. You can put just about anything in a fixed annuity. Savings, checking can go in there, 401ks, IRAs, and finally they're very easy to monitor because there's not much change involved with a fixed annuity because you can't lose value with them. So what I would suggest you do, again, if we can throw up the website there, if you would like to speak to me personally, if you're in the Southern Kentucky area, you just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and you can click on Meet with Tony. And what we're going to do, I had a workshop in Bowling Green, Kentucky the other day. I got confusing on this. For the first 10 people that want to meet with me personally, I'm going to give you all 3 books, okay? Now, for the outside the Kentucky viewing area, if you can scroll down to Find an Advisor in your area, if you can scroll down there, please, and all you got to do is click on Find an Advisor. If you're outside the Southern Kentucky viewing area, we will get you in contact with an advisor in your area, and again, if you click on that, if you contact Tony and let us know that you want the free books, they're absolutely free, all 3 of them, of $49.95 value. So John, I don't know how you can beat that. We're trying to lay out not only how to do a game plan, but then I'm going to give them the materials. Give them all 3 books that deal with man, money, and God, the WorryFree Retirement, the 3 Personalities of Money, and then my favorite personal book, Don't Follow the Herd, absolutely free.
All right, you start ringing true to you, then you know you are a saver, and this is the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers like you worry less about their money. More on your WorryFree Retirement. We'll be right back with Tony Walker.
For nearly 30 years, I've made it my life's work to help savers worry less about money. And now I invite you to personally contact me to discuss your situation to see if I can help you. It's very easy. You just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and click on the Meet with Tony link. Or, if you like, you can attend one of my free financial workshops. As always, there's never any cost or obligation to meet and discuss your situation in private. So what are you waiting for? Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Hey Tony, I'm interested about a long-term care policy or possibly a policy that you can put a lump sum in and get a return. Can you explain that?
All right, Mr. Walker.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one. There are newer products out there. I mean, that sounds like the old saying, have your cake and eat it too. How would you like to pay for long-term care if you don't use it, get your money back? Did you realize there actually are contracts out there now like that?
I want to hear about that one.
Well, it's pretty cool. Let me do this. Let me set the stage because I wanted to answer both Tony in the trenches. One of them, remember the 52-year-old gentleman that said he wanted to think about purchasing what we call traditional long-term care. Right. Now we got a Tony in the trenches. Somebody says, is there something she's obviously heard about where you can put a lump sum in? A lot of people have money languishing in the bank right now, John. Put a lump sum in, but maybe, is there a possibility if I don't use it I could get all my money back? And we're going to find out yes. So what I've done, folks, is I've worked up some slides for you. Let's kind of look at the problem with traditional long-term care. We call this kind of pay-as-you-go. This is where you buy the policy. I used to sell these years ago. They're still available. I'm not saying you shouldn't take them, but look at the problem with these. Obviously, they can provide valuable coverage for long-term care costs. There's many options available. Here's the problems where consumers object to these. They're very, very costly. Premiums can go up over the years. Benefits can be maxed out or reached, and then you don't have any more coverage. In other words, if you had a 3-year contract and you're in there for more than 3 years, you're out of luck. And then what if you never use it? LOC means lost opportunity cost. So what I'm going to do, John, let's go to the next screen. I'm actually going to show you what would happen. Now, we went out and searched for the Cadillac policy for a husband and wife, traditional long-term care, $250 a day coverage, and they've got coverage for 5 years. So that'd probably be pretty good coverage, right?
Sounds like it, yes.
Yeah. Look at the premium, though, $8,300 per year.
Whoa.
And what we did, we imagined the premium went up by 3% a year for 20 years. We just pulled that number out. It could be lower or higher, but just an example. And here's where cost of money or lost opportunity cost comes in, John. This is what people forget. When you give up your money to an insurance company, and let's say this person never used the premium, you lose the premium, plus let's say we could have made 5% interest on an income rider of an annuity, which would be guaranteed. They lost that too. So not only did they lose the premium, they lost the interest, and in this example, the long-term care cost them, if they never used it, $369,000. Thank you. I guess I should say thank you, or, I mean, so that's not really a good deal. So what's happening is people are coming and they're saying, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way than this. The insurance industry has responded, folks. Sometimes it's not going to provide maybe exactly the coverage you need, but it could provide something. What I'm going to do is let's go over here to the whiteboard. Let me give you the 3 things that can happen when you give money to an insurance company for long-term care with what I call these new hybrid life insurance contracts with long-term care riders. Let's say you give them $100,000 in premium, all right? And John, correct me if I'm wrong, there's 3 things you could do with this $100,000 over time. Let's say you don't use the contract, all right? You could cancel it, right? But what would happen if you canceled the old annuity, the old long-term care? You don't get anything back, right?
You're going to lose your investment, yes.
Lose everything. Well, this one, if you canceled it, what if you could get your original principal back? Not bad, huh?
I like the sound of that.
Okay, so you could cancel it. Or what if you actually had a long-term care situation? In this example, and it depends on your age, we have to get people quotes. And by the way, the advisors in your area can get you quotes on these all day long. We're happy to do that. There's no cost or obligation if you want to see how these new hybrid life insurance products work. But basically, they might say, okay, we'll pay you $4,500 a month for 5 years if, it's a big if you need it. So you with me so far?
Right.
So you could cancel it, get all your money back.
You could use it.
Or you could use it. Or the third thing that will happen, if these 2 don't happen, is you're going to die, right? It's inevitable, you're going to happen. So, folks, these newer products cover all 3 contingencies. You could cancel it, get all your money back. You could have some sort of long-term care situation, therefore it would pay an amount depending on your age and what you put in. And then, if you don't ever use it, and eventually you die, not if you die, when you die, there would be an amount of money paid in addition to the $100,000, and remember with a death benefit, it would be completely tax-free. So John, as I see that, I think what people need to understand and what you need to think about out there is, look, we've got to be prepared for long-term care. However, a lot of people have really struggled with this idea of, I don't want to pay all this money and possibly lose it all. What if I don't go in? These new hybrid products are covering that contingency.
Yeah, Tony, it seems to me you're prepared in any scenario with this kind of hybrid product. No matter what happens, if you need the money, you can cancel it, you can get the money. If you need to use it, yeah, here we go, we're going to take care of you there. And then, of course, your death benefit, you get that as well. So, I mean, that sounds like
it does.
It's a win-win. It really is.
It really
a win-win-win.
Win-win-win. Because like you said, when you think about it, one of those things is going to happen. So what I would suggest you do, folks, again, these newer products, most people are not familiar with them. They don't even know they exist. They've really kind of hit the fray in the last 6 months. So again, if you would like a quote on this newer hybrid life insurance that includes the long-term care provision, it includes the surrender of values that you can get back, I would encourage you to go to the website right now. Let's look at that at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. If you're in the Southern Kentucky viewing area, again, just click on Contact Tony or Meet with Tony. I'll be happy to go over it with you. If you're outside the Southern Kentucky viewing area, one of our other states watching the program, just go down to Find an Advisor. Be sure to fill out all the information. And remember, the first 10 people from any of these viewing areas that click on the Find an Advisor or go to Contact Tony and request the books. Let's put those 3 books up. All 3 of my books I've written, John. The Worry-Free Retirement, 3 Personalities of Money, and Don't Follow the Herd. We're sending those out for the first 10 in each market, including Southern Kentucky area. We'll be happy to send you those books absolutely free, and that'll get you on the road to thinking through this process of being worry-free.
Once again, it's the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you're a saver, we're the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about their money. Jump on that website, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. We'll be right back with the Worry-Free Retirement.
How would you like to find a trusted advisor in your area who practices and preaches the same safe money solutions that I speak of on this program? Well, you can by simply logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and clicking on the Find an Advisor link. Once there, just fill out the confidential profile and submit it. This free service is available to savers who are serious about safeguarding their money. So what are you waiting for? Stop worrying and log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. You know, perhaps you've had your retirement all mapped out, but it doesn't go exactly as you planned. Next week, we're going to talk about unexpected things that may happen to you, and you have to take an early retirement. Tony's going to tell you exactly how to navigate through that road right here on the Worry-Free Retirement. Look forward to it.
Look forward to it as well. Thank you for joining us.
That's right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week right here on the Worry-Free Retirement.
You've been watching the Worry-Free Retirement with financial advisor Tony Walker. To ask Tony a question or to find an advisor in your area, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.